70,
There's the yard camera.
70, that's Boulevard.
I'm putting on my good posture tonight.
Glad I dressed up.
Good night. Wow. Very good to see you. Been fun. I've been laying low for a couple months. But I came just this past Tuesday to here. And so.
We're in sections already, right?
Yes.
Not the induction, it was the
Yeah.
physical process that they put you through. And I got home with Ferentz, yeah, I said,
We're doing like spiritual children's songs and all of these.
great.
Oh, and these slips.
Nobody knows. At that time, they did later. Because I was figuring, well, all right, well, I'll go up. And I was a really good trombone player at the time. I said, I'll get a amateur band easily. After I got sent back to Champaign, sort of a disgrace. Because everybody else in the bus had gotten inducted. Here I am. My mouth shut. I wanted to be stoned. So I got home and that night a little bit later, I was watching some kids. And the show was sort of like a regiment. And occasionally these instruments pick up a fight. That was a sad time. I'm 70.
Matt. Yes. Yes.
So have you, I can tell from seeing you, you're a musician. Have you taught like shape note singing?
Based in your birth,
Yes.
assigned to
Yes. And I'm not a music teacher, but a teacher for my day job.
Oh, yeah?
Matt, you're basically a music teacher.
I teach physics.
I know, but previously.
We are right. I'm doing a whole unit starting next week. They're designing and building their own musical instrument from scratch. So yeah, we're doing part of it. Yeah, exactly. But I also came at this. I still have I have a vivid enough memory of as I was coming from this with not a ton of formal music education, but just growing up and just all of the things that I had to sort of unlearn and had to train myself out of, but also thinking about my musician friends that I've dragged to conventions and just how overwhelmed they are. Yeah. I'm excited.
out of curiosity. I just picked it up. I wasn't even through. What's the dining price?
Yeah, Tuesday, 2:30.
I wasn't last. I wasn't last.
it's obviously impossible for me to face everybody. So I'm just going to pick this one direction, and sorry back there. We're absolutely delighted to have the Shape Note Singers with us tonight. For those of you who haven't heard this, we have a big concert series here, and I'll tell you more about it later on in the program. But arts have been a part of the Christian church for many, many years. You can go back and find medieval church buildings with beautiful statuary, and of course we all know of buildings from the late Middle Ages like Notre Dame in Paris, which I guess is being rebuilt. But there are churches much older than that in Europe as well that still have a lot of artistic material in them, statuary and all that kind of thing. And that's been an important part of the Christian church, and it's an important part of St. Giles. And we want to promote the arts here. We're absolutely delighted to have the Richmond Shape Note Singers here with us tonight. I'm so old that I have actually been to a Shape Note performance when I was a child. My grandmother dragged me off to it. And so I have some experience with it. And I told a number of people here this, but Shape Note singing is basically for average, everyday, ordinary people, not for professional singers. As a matter of fact, an opera singer would almost destroy a performance like this. So if you say, I can't sing, do it anyway. My line is, you know, if you have a voice, you need to use it, and if you don't, you need to get even. So, but you will learn tonight how to read shape notes as shape notes, so that you're not reliant on whether notes are on spaces or lines or whatever. You just learned how to move up and down in that, and that'll be all explained to you. And for those of you who are here live, you have copies of the music. For those who are online, and we're delighted to have you, their music will be put up on your screen when we're doing it, so that you can see what to do and you can sing along with us. So let me just turn this over to the Shape Note group, and we'll get started.
All right, I am also going to do just a very, very brief welcome. But for those of you who have come in here and you notice that we are set up a little bit differently than you normally see vocal groups set up, Shape Note singing is not meant to be a performative art. It is meant to be a participatory art, where we are, as a community, building this artistic thing together. So I've got two quotes that I like to drop at the beginning. One of them, as folks who go to church might know, Psalm 100, make a joyful noise. You will notice it does not say make a joyful, perfectly tuned soprano line with all of the notes and all of the loud and soft. It says a noise. It doesn't matter. But then there's also Charles Wesley, a great hymnody writer from the 18th century, said, sing lustily and with good courage. Beware singing as if you were half dead. So we've all said it at some point or another, oh no, I don't sing. We invite you to please do this as you feel you are able, as you feel you are led. If your participation today is to come and listen and sit in the seats and learn about it, we invite you to do that as well. But if you just need a little bit of a push to give it a try, we welcome that. So starting off, we're going to have Matt Ferentz.
Hey everyone. So I'm going to talk just sort of a little bit about how to approach this musically, especially if you are coming from a background of other musical experience or musical education. There are some things within this tradition that are a little bit different than what you may be used to. First of all, as I think I'm at least the third person to say this tonight, we're not interested in trying to sound pretty or beautiful. We are not on risers facing an audience. This is something we are doing for ourselves. And so if you hit a wrong note, if you forget which shape is which, it really doesn't matter. We're not doing this for a performance, and we're rehearsing until we get it perfect. We're just doing it to be in the moment. We don't really sing with much vibrato. You certainly can if you are so inspired, but it's just full-voiced, and as we look at this music, you'll notice that there are no dynamic markings, there's no loudness or softness, it's just loud all the time. It's just fortissimo all the time. The way we say it is that if you can hear your neighbor singing, you're not singing loudly enough. And the reason for that, like I said, because we're not doing vibrato with this full voice fortissimo, it really fills you up. This music fills you up, and feeling the physical sensations of the resonance inside you in this sort of surround sound is really overwhelming and amazing, and for a lot of us who've been singing this, one of the, if not the biggest appeal of this type of music. So I hope you're able to experience that tonight. So let's open the packet. I'm going to talk a little bit. We'll sing some stuff. I'll talk a little bit. We'll sing some more stuff. We're starting with Old 100, which if you're following along in a book is 49. This is the oldest piece in the Sacred Harp, which is one of the songbooks we sing out of. And of course, the first thing you notice is that the music is shaped, hence the name. The good news is, if you can read music, you don't have to worry about the shapes. It's the same staff, it's the same clefs, you can just sort of turn off that part of your brain and just sing. Okay, so then why bother having the shapes anyway? There are two reasons. The first is that it helps, if you don't know how to read music, you can still sing along to this. And that's something that Adrian is going to talk about a little later, going into sort of the historical and cultural context of this kind of stuff. But for me, I've been singing with this group since 2010. Having the shapes actually does help me sight read, because we see that this piece, Old 100, it's in A major, so the first note in all these 4 lines, well, except for the second one, is A, it's the home note, or the tonic, if you want to be a music nerd about it. And that's a triangle. And so knowing that, okay, we're singing the triangle, I know that fa, like that's my note. And so if I'm an alto and I'm singing on the second line, okay, that's fa, sol, that's the 5th below, so that's the E, right? And so like just being able to go from shape to shape in intervals and seeing it as well really helps with sight reading. Because when we get together as a group, we may be, over the course of 2 hours, we may be singing a couple dozen of these pieces. And they're short, they go fast, and sometimes it's something you know really well, sometimes it's something you've never seen before. And so sight reading is a really valuable part of it. So a couple other things to make note of just before we sing this. This says that it's in A major. Tisn't necessarily so. This is relative pitch. The reason it's pitched in A major is just so all of the notes fit on the staff. So there will be someone in the group that will give everyone the pitch. And what that pitch is may depend on how we're feeling, or who's here, or whether we warmed up or not. So we'll go with that. And then the other sort of notable thing, one of the more immediately noticeable things about shape note music is when we sing these pieces, we sing the names of the shapes first, which is a solfege. So in Western classical music, you have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And in shape note music, we have fa, sol, la, ti, do. So we only have 4 shapes. And so we sing those again, to help with sight reading. So the first time we sing a piece, the first time it's called, we sing the names of the shapes first. I don't know if we have a cheat sheet or anything.
La 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 is perfectly acceptable. If you are new to this and you just want to noise along, or so since it's fa, sol, la, you could also go fla, fla, fla and kind of hedge your bets. Also, if you are singing the treble line, the high soprano, you are going to be the top line in the music. Alto is going to be the second line down. Tenor, the main melody, we are the third line down, and bass on the bottom.
Thank you. Yes. Forgot to mention that. So we'll go ahead and sing through this in terms of sort of conducting or leading, since this is a cappella. Rather than do the sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, right, sort of conductor style, very often it's just sort of a sawing motion, down and up and down and up. So If it's in 4/4, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. But for this one, since it's in 2, we'll just do 1, 2. And we'll go nice and slow. So we're going to sing the trebles on the top, altos second down, tenors third line down, and basses on the bottom. And we'll sing through the shapes first and go back and sing the words. Fa, sol, fa, sol, fa. Fa, fa, mi, la, sol, fa, sol, la. La, fa, sol, fa, la, sol. See, that wasn't so hard. All right, we're going to sing the next one down on the bottom of the program. This is 47 bottom, I think, if you're following in the...
Have you gone over what the shapes are, in case anyone's curious?
I guess I should do that, probably, yeah. I told you to sing the shapes, I didn't even mention what they were. So, yeah, so the triangle is fa, or fa. The circle is so. The rectangle is la, or law, and the diamond is mi. So if it's a major piece that we're singing, the tonic, that sort of home root note, is fa, which is the triangle. This next piece we're going to sing is minor. And so the tonic or root note is a rectangle, which is la, and that's this A that we have. La, sol, sol, la, sol, la, la, pa, la. So one other thing about the in terms of beating time, you don't need to do it. It's just something, right? Trying to this and sing the shapes and remember what your arm is supposed to be doing. Don't worry about it. Enough people are doing it, you can follow along. This particular piece, sorry, I'll get in front of the mic again. This particular piece is in 3/2. So instead of just down, up, it's out, down, and up. La, fa, la, sol, la, la, verses 1 and 4. And am I born to die, to lay this body down, and must my trembling spirit fly. know how you would sing that softly. All right. Yes. Yeah, it's it is it took me a while to get used to singing this. I felt very much when I started like I was thrown into the deep end. So.
Like which verse were you on? It was like.
Yes. I jumped from 1 to 4. Mm-hmm.
They will often hold up fingers. But I'm also, if you see me, I'm holding them up. Pat might be holding them up so that everybody across the square can get a view. Yeah, that's why not just one person is beating time. Everybody can see at least one other part. So if you can see at least one other part, there'll be somebody there to help you.
Sorry about that. No. I mean, yeah. So if you're, we are going to move on to sort of the next type of piece that is common in these books. This is Cavalry, which is 300. If you're following in the red book, just on the next page. If you're in the program. So one of the another one of the things I really like about this style of music, especially in that last piece, as you were singing it, there wasn't really a harmony. A lot of in this tradition, rather than have just, and here's the melody, and we'll just sing some pretty harmonies around it, every part has its own sort of voice, its own sort of path that it's going, which is called polyphonic. So many sounds, many voices. And there are pieces like what we're about to sing, which is called Cavalry, that we call a fugue. And so this is something where all the parts were not in unison anymore. Everything's sort of overlapping on top of each other. And I really like it. It can get a little overwhelming. It can get a little messy. But yeah, it's right. We're not doing this to be perfect. I mean, if you think about human nature, it's kind of the point. We're never going to be perfect. So we're going to sing. This is another minor song. So we'll start. Our tonic note is going to be that La, that rectangle. Tenors are going to start us off. If you follow 2/3 of the way through this first line, we say, go search the world beneath. That symbol right after there is a repeat sign. So then basses, you'll start where nature all in ruin lies, and then every part will come in and jump sort of on top of each other, and we'll all mix together. We'll end, hopefully at the same time. We'll come back to the repeat, and then basses, you'll carry us through that repeat. So we're going to go fairly slowly and take it nice and easy on the shapes, just while everyone sort of gets the feel for how this is going to work. And then once we sing the words, we'll speed it up a little bit. Probably not too much, but maybe just a little bit. Yes?
You really have to watch leaders about those repeats, because sometimes they'll tell you and sometimes they won't. So
That's very
true. You just kind of have to just, wing it.
Very true. La, 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 pa, la, 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 so, fa, mi, mi, la, so, fa, mi, la, 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 fa, 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 so, 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 la, 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 mi, la, so, si, la, so, fa, mi, mi, la, Ready to do it with the words? We'll pick it up just a little bit, just a little bit. My thoughts that off the skies go south, the world beneath.
There is no other music like this in the world. I've tried to find some, there isn't. All right, I'm going to let Adrienne step back on up here. Adrienne is a historian, and so she's much more qualified than I to talk sort of about the historical and cultural context of this music and why we're still singing it today.
All right, I have a tendency to be very mobile when I'm speaking, which when I'm standing in front of a podium is to my disadvantage, but this is the perfect setting. So shape note music, first of all, this method of using different little shaped notes actually didn't come about until about 1803. But like many American art forms, it has lots and lots of predecessors that sort of led up and then coalesced into this art form. So we're going to go back a little bit further than 1803, and we're going to start off in England in the 16th and 17th centuries, when this tradition of a cappella, untrained, congregational singing came about in the Anglican churches, and it's called West Gallery music. That is one of the most direct ancestors of shape note singing. And you would recognize many of the principles, and a lot of the songs have actually carried over as well. But the idea is that music doesn't have to be practiced and polished. It doesn't have to be for only some people. It's something that everybody can do, and everybody can do well. And so this is our opportunity. And another feature of this type of music would be also something you might be familiar with in early American music, and the idea of the sort of the itinerant singing master. So you're not necessarily the appointed musical leader of a certain congregation. You might be just a musician who's really good at this, and you kind of have a little circuit that you go around and lead singings or schools or gatherings for people to do this type of music. So those are some of the features of West Gallery music that transfer over to shape note that are most distinctive. But shape note, like I said, we've started off in England in the 17th century. Shape note's an American art form. So as people start sailing across the Atlantic Ocean to the British colony of the Americas, they bring their artistic traditions with them. And what will become shape note music, proto-shape note music, really gets a foothold up in New England. And this is, if we're going to label different eras of this type of music, I'm going to call this one the Yankee Toonsmiths, because there's a very distinctive sound to this type of music. If you've ever been to Colonial Williamsburg, you will have actually heard some of it, even if you didn't know it. But these are, the folks that they actually call the Yankee Toonsmiths are people who are blacksmiths or bank clerks or postal carriers who also delved in music, and they wrote for this type of art, this participatory, not necessarily trained. They were not necessarily trained. They composed this music just because they kind of could. So this is, now we've come from England, 17th century, now we're in New England, 18th century, and we're gonna sing our way through this timeline. So if you look into your packets, you find the one that says Chester, 479. If folks at home are following along in the red book, that's 479. And like I said, if you've been to Colonial Williamsburg and you've heard the fifes and drums, this is gonna sound familiar. Actually, I'm gonna take that up a little bit, and this part about this being not for professional singers, I'm not a professional either. So if I make a mistake, it will be in front of everybody. So I'm going to go up from that a little bit. Fa, fa, so, if anybody remembers the John Adams miniseries that filmed around here a little while ago, you might also recognize this tune because they sing it. John and Abigail, and the verse that they highlight is the one that starts with, "Let tyrants shake their iron rods," which, for American Revolution has a certain little ring to it. So that's the next big phase that comes up is we have the American Revolution, and after Yorktown, etc., we have tossed them out. We are now free men. We're making our Constitution. You'll actually see this in a lot of different art forms, but there is a massive cultural rejection of everything British. We are no longer British. We have established ourselves as a country. We don't need them anymore. And so this is sort of a new era of shape note singing. I'm going to call this the New Republic. And it is in this era that we actually get the shaped notes. Now, Matt alluded to this a little bit, and what you see in front of you with the music is one system of shape note singing. You're seeing the 4-note system, fa, sol, la, mi, fa. That is not the only way to do this, because by golly, we're Americans and you can do it how you want. So there are shape note systems that go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and there are songbooks for all of them. But the 4-note system is actually one of the older ones, which is why, and it's also what we sing today in this community. So that's why we're working on this one. But in the New Republic, you start to get songs like, and we're not going to sing this one in your packet, I just want to show you. If you go to 346 in the red book, those of you following along at home, or in the packets, it's just the next song over, the one called American Star. Like I said, we're not going to sing this. This one would never make the American Top 40. It's a challenging song to sing for not that much reward. But if you look at the top line, the first notes are the spirits of Washington, Warren, Montgomery. Well, raise your hand if you think you know which Washington they're referring to. George Washington. And on top of this song, there are other songs that reference George Washington all over the place in several tune books. But who is Warren and who is Montgomery? The short version of this is that they are people we don't really remember much today, but both of them were early American leaders. One of them was a doctor who was a politician and was killed at Breed's Hill in 1775. That's Warren, Joseph Warren. And Montgomery was the general who led the invasion of Quebec, another sort of figure that we don't think of very often. But even if we don't know who these people are today, the people singing this music absolutely would have known who these people were. All you had to say was Montgomery. We know who that is. So you kind of get, it's almost a civic religion in a way, and you start to see that coming through in this music. So we have split off from the English West Gallery music. We're starting to fill up our music with references to all of our new political heroes and people that we respect. There's a song in our red tune book called Mount Vernon. Guess who that refers to? There's a song that was written actually when George Washington died, and it is a lament. It is absolutely a lament to beat all. Some of the lines in it, our friend, protector, strength, and trust lies low and moldering in the dust. Where shall we look for aid? And it is really, really just, I mean, it tugs on your heartstrings a little bit. But that's how important this was to this type of music. And you, like I said, you can see that in visual arts, you can see that in other, you know, in fashion to a certain extent, just this complete rejection of what is British. Well, we aren't anymore. So one of the next phases, now we're sort of moving through the early Republic. We fast forwarded through the War of 1812, and now what starts to happen in American history is people start to get a move on. And so does shape note music. We are moving away from these major urban centers in New England, and people are starting to come down what we now know as Interstate 81, down the Great Wagon Road. So as they're passing from these big urban centers in New England down the Great Wagon Road, they're going through Pennsylvania, and they're going down the Shenandoah Valley. So we butt up against another really, really big cultural group of people, and that is people who were essentially German. So if you think about Pennsylvania Dutch, if you think about how out in the Shenandoah Valley there are these large populations of Mennonites and people who are of some sort of Anabaptist faith, shape note starts to move through these areas, and like any good American art form, it starts to absorb what it meets up with. There's actually, we encountered the Yankee Toonsmiths up in New England. There's another group of people who are sort of this itinerant type of composers who are very distinctive of this new Shenandoah Valley, we're going to call it the Shenandoah Valley sound. And things start to get a little bit weirder. We've moved on from this very bright, tended to be major, 1, 2, and marchy singing Chester like we did. And sometimes when you pick out songs from this era and this region, the opening chord doesn't make sense. Or it is very, very minor and it almost sounds jazzy, or maybe even in some ways a little bit like it's absorbed some Eastern European influences. You know, we talk about these folks and we describe them as German, but Germany as a country didn't exist until the 19th century. So these are people from German-influenced areas in the Czech Republic, and sort of all over that area. So they're bringing those musical influences, and shape note begins to take that in. So the next one that we're actually going to give this one a shot, and this one is, I chose it partly because it is a little bit crunchy like some of these songs tend to be, but also up on the upper right-hand corner you'll see the name Ananias Davison, and he is someone who is one of the most distinctive authors of shape note music from this time. Ananias Davison and the Chapin brothers are the be-all, end-all of the Shenandoah Valley. So we're going to try Davison's Retirement, which actually has nothing to do with him retiring. And if you're following along at home, this is actually out of the Shenandoah Harmony, and it's number 232. Chord, you can see what I'm talking about. It doesn't quite resolve itself how you want it to. So, That's the great thing about this music also, is if we're not really feeling it, all right, hold up, stop. It needs to pitch low, it needs to pitch high, or I just didn't get it, let's try it again. So you're really getting the full experience
Yeah,
tonight.
that happens about 10 times a night when we get together.
Yeah. We laugh about it, we brush it off, we keep going. So let's try it one more time. Just the first verse.
Jesus and shall it ever be a mortal man, ashamed of thee, and shall not be angels praise, whose glory shine through endless days.
We got it. Most of us got it. I think we did really well.
We all ended at the same place at the same time.
We did.
And that's what's important.
I call it a win. So we've gone through, we've started off in England, we came to New England, we fought off the British, we've traveled down the Great Wagon Road, and so as we're moving through the 19th century in American history, it's funny to us today to call this the West, but in the 1830s and 40s, what people would consider the West is coming into Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and it's now what we would sort of consider the Deep South. And people are spreading out into that area, even more so than they were before. And so here's where we butt up against another really, really big cultural influence, and that is the music of African Americans. And so the tune, again, it sort of begins to change, and we move from the Shenandoah Valley sound, and we start to hear a lot more gospel, or what we would now, today, identify as gospel, but we get into these grand, sweeping major tunes. And so the next song that we're gonna do is really indicative of that, but there's another point that I wanted to make about it, and then as if you flip to almost your last page, the song we're singing is called Paradise. It's got the number 404 next to it. And if you're following along at home out of your books, this is in the Shenandoah Harmony. And so on the top right corner, you'll notice that it gives credit to a gentleman named William H. Swann. Well, in the 1840s, William H. Swann was a member of a family that was huge in shape note music. The Swanns were responsible for the publishing of several different tune books, the New Harp of Columbia, the Harp of Columbia. This type of music, because it is not taught at a conservatory, it is not taught as an educational thing, you can almost think about it as being taught as a trade. And so many, many pieces, like I mentioned before with the Shenandoah Valley Sound, Amzie and Lucius Chapin, the Chapin brothers, this is a family business. You would often learn this from a father or an uncle, or, and surprisingly, a mother or an aunt. There are actually a number of tunes published in the early and mid-19th century by women who are authors of this music, and it's mostly women in these really big families where it's just kind of what everybody does. So that's, you know, I kind of like to think about it that way, like I said before, more of a trade than it is something that is highly educated into you. It is part of what they do. It's part of their life. So we are going to try Paradise as soon as I sit down this mic and open up my music. And you will definitely hear more of the gospel influences in this song. You know what? I'm going to take that down, because otherwise I'm going to fry them. I just want to let that sit for a minute because, y'all, we nailed that, and that felt so good. That was great. So we've gone through a little bit of the history of Shape Note. We've moved it all the way across the ocean from England, New England, down 81. We're now down somewhere around Atlanta and Alabama. And really, for a long time, this is where it's going to stay. And part of it is we've talked about how it moved when people were voluntarily bringing it somewhere. But there's another part of the story, and that is how it moved when people were pushing it out. And so about this same time that it's moving down into the south and through the Shenandoah Valley, there's a movement of music up in the big northern urban centers, and they called it the Better Music Movement. It's straight up, capital letters all the way across. And the idea behind this music was, God doesn't want to hear that. That sounds terrible. We can pay for these great big, like, these grand cathedrals and these organs, and we can pay people to become choir masters and train up musicians to practice. Why wouldn't we do that? And so there's a couple of fellows. It's funny, he even has tunes in the Shape Note book, but he was the big driver behind it. There's a gentleman called Lowell Mason who just He didn't want that. He thought, we can practice this up, we can polish it up, and we think that's better. I am not going to say that it was better. That's what he thought. So at the same time people are bringing it with them, it's also kind of getting pushed out, and that push follows it. So by the later 19th century, I'm not going to say that the music is dying out, because it certainly isn't, but it becomes a lot less popular and kind of falls out of the mainstream. And you still hear it, again, largely in the South. There are annual gatherings of Shape Note singers called conventions, and there are conventions that have met every year since the Civil War until 2020. But that's really where it sort of takes a hold and takes a home. Until what starts to happen in the 1960s, you get the folk music revival. And so there are people who have been singing this music their entire lives, and all of a sudden they have the interest and the resources available to them to bring this music out of the churches where it's sort of been living for a little while and bring it to the broader audience. And so, again, you've got this revival, and now even today, there are singings all over the world. There are singings in Bremen, Germany. There are singings in Poland, France, Japan, all across the United States. And they don't just sing the tune books that we sing out of, which I'll put in a plug. Please, 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 when we're finished with the teaching part, we're going to open this square up, and we would love for you to sing with us, just as an open, free sing. We would love for you to listen to us do an open, free sing. And we have boxes of books that we usually sing out of. We would love for you to explore those. You will find some tunes that are familiar to you. But we'd love for you to get to know this music a little bit better, and it'll be a little bit more of a free-form environment. But yes, this music, it's still around. There are still people composing this type of music, and there are still brand new tune books coming out, because it is a living tradition. We've talked a lot about the history and where it came from, but this is not a tradition that's frozen in amber. It is still a living practice. It is still a joyful practice. So then the last song that I am going to sing with you all, or the last song that I'm going to lead for the moment, and then we are going to open it up for questions, which I'm sure you might have one or two. But the last song we're going to sing is appropriately, the last song in your packet. And I chose this one because even though you will notice on the top left corner, Thomas Kelly wrote these lyrics in 1802, this arrangement of the tune was published in 2012. And not only was it published in 2012, but also you'll notice it says it's arranged by the Hoboken Singers. Lots and lots of tunes and practices in this music are not as necessarily as written down. It's how the group feels led. If someone calls a tune and wants to lead it, and we are super into it, and that fugue on the refrain is just killer, you might see that they're just going to lead a repeat, because by golly, it feels right. So this tune is also sort of a codification of how this group of singers practiced and sang this tune. So we've no abiding city here, and this is a really good shouty one. So like if you are not ready for Monday morning, or if you had kind of a rough weekend, this is the moment to let it all out. All right.
Thank
We do, I kind of meant to do this all along, and I got ahead of myself because I was so excited. But I really do want to open this up for questions, because we just took a giant information dump, and there's a lot to process. And I promise you that if you have a question, there are probably at least 5 or 6 other people sitting in this room who have that same question, and probably even a few more online. So I'd encourage you, this is the time to ask questions, and also it's not just going to be me or Matt talking at you. There are plenty of folks around here who are experienced singers who might be able to shed a little bit more light and color on the answer. So let's open the floor for questions right there already.
I was wondering, is there a way to listen to hymns on YouTube that are done in this approach? And what would you Google to find?
The question came for the folks who are watching online is, where do I listen to this? And the suggestion of YouTube was excellent. There are lots and lots of YouTubers who will post videos of people singing this type of music. And what you would Google is, I would start with just Shape Note. Or one of the most common tune books that get used is called Sacred Harp. That is the red book, the Sacred Harp right there. That's a very commonly used tune book that a lot of people will post songs. The Shenandoah Harmony is another tune book that we use. And also, if anybody is a Spotify user, there are actually a number of albums out there. Most of the ones on Spotify are professional choirs who are kind of dipping their toe in. But there are a few albums that are recorded conventions where you can hear this type of music. So yeah, YouTube is really your friend on this one. CD. Yeah, the Liberty Union Convention. I'll slow down so people can write that down. Liberty Union. The Word of Mouth Chorus did a Shape Note album. And who else?
Nora Vega Harmony does a lot, but they perform.
Okay, yeah. Anonymous 4 has done an album that includes some Shape Note tunes. I think that one's called American Angels. So yeah, there's a couple different places where you can find this and listen. That was a great question. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So I was introduced to this as a kid in southern Alabama.
All right.
African-American version of this. And so I was wondering who are the famous folks, because I probably saw them on TV, but I didn't know who I was looking at.
The Wiregrass Singers is probably that one.
That's me.
Yeah, they got, and actually that's another album. Alan Lomax, who was an American he was an American ethnomusicologist who did field recordings in the early part of the 20th century, and he recorded the Wiregrass Singers, which is an African-American shape note group from Alabama.
There's a whole bunch of TV shows of them singing. So every Sunday morning, from 6:30 to 7:30, the Wiregrass Singers would be recorded. I guess they were recorded, but they would be on our TV station.
Pat just pointed out that there is actually a book written called Black Shape Note.
It was published put out by Reverend Jackson, and it's been out for a while. And actually, at the national convention, which is in Alabama, several of Jackson's descendants have come up and sung with us.
Okay, so they're still going.
Oh yeah.
I was afraid they'd
Oh
all
yeah.
died out.
Nope, that is still a very strong tradition. One more.
But aren't there hymns that we sing today, like Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, or
How about Amazing Grace?
that are done in this style?
Tunes that you might recognize in the Red Book, Amazing Grace is one of them. It's in there. 72 on the bottom. What is that one again?
Is that Bellevue?
Yeah, Bellevue. But what are the lyrics?
How firm a foundation?
How firm a foundation. What wondrous love is this? Holy Manna. It's called in our book. Poor Wayfaring Stranger. That's one that's become popular. That's in this book. There's a lot of them where you recognize the tune, but it might have different lyrics. It's
The one I always bring up, and we're always like, which one is that again? I know it is Resignation, but it has a different one.
Irwinton. Yeah.
Irwinton, thank you. See, they always remind me.
Yeah.
Well, and something, correct me if where they were sung, so it might have lyrics you recognize, but the title is going to be somewhere where it was sung and somebody decided to call it that.
Yeah, Jordan's point for those who are watching online, a lot of the names of songs in the Shape Note books are going to be, might have nothing to do with what the lyrics are, because it might be named for the town it was composed in, it might be named for, like Davison's Retirement. That had nothing to do with retirement. But if you look in these books, there's actually an index of common first lines, and that might be where you find more what you're looking for if you're not familiar with the book. So I think what we're going to do is Linus had a few words he wanted to say, and we can informally take a few questions and have a talk with anybody who wants to. We have loaner books. We are going to be here doing just an open sing. We invite you to stay here and sing with us. We invite you to stay here and listen to us in our natural habitat. But we'll be here for just a little while longer after Linus gives his remarks. And we'd also love to see you at our regular singings. There's information on the front of your packets with how to join our email list, and that is me, so I promise you it's not spam. There should be information on how to find us on social media if you are a social media user, and from those two nodes, we'll get to you information on our regular gatherings and upcoming events.
Also, you regularly meet here 2 times a month. It's first Tuesday and third Sunday. At what time?
Tuesday is in the evening, 7 to 9.
Tuesday, 7 to 9.
Sunday, 2 to 4.
Sunday, 2 to 4. First Tuesday and third Sunday. Got that? Okay. I'm going to be up here with a sort of different hat on than I had earlier. I was welcoming you on behalf of the church. I'm the person that's responsible for putting together the concert series here. And I just wanted to let you know what we have scheduled so far this year. We have VCU chamber ensembles on April 3rd. We have a piano recital by Magdalena Adamek on May 6th. An organ recital by a German organist, Raphael Attila Vogel, on May 20th. Ensemble Lafayette, which is organ and harp. It's the assistant organist from the Naval Academy and a really well-known harpist in the Washington area that do concerts together. And that should be a really spectacular program. And then on August 14th, we have an organ recital by Daniel Stipe. There are a number of programs in the planning stage beyond that. There will be something here in September, probably an organ recital, and then 2 other programs, different programs in October and November. We're talking about a Christmas concert in December. I don't know that we've entirely settled on that. The VCU String Orchestra will be here in April of next year with including a performance of the organ concerto by Francis Poulonc, for which this organ is particularly suited, the one in the church. It's obviously not in here. We also have several other organists coming, including another one from Germany, as well as an organist from Singapore. So we really have made some considerable plans for the future. If you look at the back of your program, if you're here in the room, you will see that we have a list of people that we call Friends of the Concert Series, and they have donated money towards this, as well as some that are anonymous, towards this series. Now, we've got some money, but we've kind of gambled in putting together all of these concerts that we would have enough money to do it. This is not supported by the church budget here at all. This is entirely independent of the church budget. And any donations you can make would be greatly appreciated. There's a number of ways to do that. We have envelopes on the back table if you're here in the room. They look like this. And if you want to put money in there, indicate what level you wanted to donate at. And any donation is welcome. If you just give us a couple dollars, it helps. Every little bit, it's the little pieces that make up the whole. Or on the back of the program, holding a microphone and holding things up is difficult. There's a QR code, and you can click on that, and it will take you to a site where, with a credit card, you can make a donation. That will be a tremendous help to us as well. And that money comes back to the church to an account to the account for the concert series. If you're out there online, either now, live, or in the future, you can go to the church's website at stgiles.org and find the concert series. And at the bottom of that page, there's a place where you can give us a donation, and we would greatly appreciate that. Also on the back table is a card that looks like this, and if you want to get text messages or emails about our programs, if you would fill one of those out. There's a basket on the back table for all of that stuff to go in. We'll be sure that you know when all the programs are and what's scheduled, and get reminders of those. I think that kind of covers everything. We really do appreciate our donors. We've had some very, very generous donations, and we look forward to any help that any of you can give. We're absolutely delighted to have this program tonight, and I hope that it will inspire people around town to join this group and enlarge it. And we look forward to maybe doing this again in the future. So I will turn this back over to you.
All right, so we do have some loaner books still right over here on the tenor bench. If you would like to join us, feel free to swap around parts. If as you were singing you discovered that maybe your vocal range is a little lower than you thought it was, hop over. Find somewhere that you are comfortable. And like I said, you are welcome to observe if you would like, but we do encourage participation if you feel so bold. But we'll probably be here for about another 30 minutes or so and just have an open sing. So you can watch us as we do our thing.
Stick with the red, yeah.
Is there another red logo floating around? I mean, I don't mind sharing it either. Oh, I'm going to share one with Dr.
And that gray box in that chip.
Those different plumb out over there.
Okay.
I think we're on a red, but I
Yeah,
can,
I
can share it.
think that's it.
Cool. Yeah, we'll stick to the harp.
Yeah, stick to the harp as much as possible.
Okay, done.
Does anybody feel particularly inspired by one?
Lois, is there something?
Why don't we do Stratfield 142?
142 in the red book.
Pardon me, what was the call?
142 in the red book.
Thank you.
Stratfield. Do you want to pitch or do you want me to pitch?
178.
178. And do you want to pitch, or would you like to pitch?
Oh.
178 in the red book.
No, that's wrong.
That's actually part of the reason why I was like, just.
What's the number?
229.
229 in the red book.
This is one I mentioned earlier, onlookers and listeners. It's My Shepherd will supply my need, but not a different melody or tune, text. I mean. 229.
326.
326 on the bottom and the tan book.
We need one more over there. I can
Page turns necessary.
Yes,
Nope.
yes. Up over facing. Yep. Yep.
326 on the bottom.
Oh,
of the tan book.
yeah.
All right, buckle up.
Good old way. Buckle up.
Trish, do you want to pitch it or do you want to pitch?
That forebodes ill.
sawing beating, it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. La,
Because, I mean, it's in a, like,
The
it's
red
a,
book?
from the tritone.
Yeah.
Let's do Wondrous Love, 159.
They didn't care.
Red book.
159. 159. We need more red books.
Hard time reading the lyrics of the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't always line up.
Giles, would you like
Yeah.
to
I'd like a pitch.
Just wait till
If they get it true.
good practice. And then you learn to look ahead.
I'm gonna do this in 4.
Okay.
Okay.
1, 2.
La,
and I think it's called Holy Man in our hymnal.
But if you look for the tune, it usually says Holy Man.
That's what I mean, yeah.
It's in the Episcopal hymnal with totally different words. I mean,
Yes.
no relation at all.
Shape note speed because we did a practice speed. So I'm trying to give everybody a leg up and that we've done it once before. We'll go practice speed on the shape and shape note speed on the words.
La la
stand with me and just listen, you are absolutely welcome to do that. I will try not to whack you as I'm
Should-
listening.
Adrian, can you pitch it up just ever so slightly?
A little up.
Like just like one step?
Yeah. Next Sunday, I will not be here and Pat will not be here. Is there anybody else who has a conflict, or is there